It is not Wednesday, my dudes, which means it's time for another First Thoughts and Initial Impressions Epic 7 video. This one will be on Swift Flagbearer Sigret, the first of 2 art contest winner units that was shown earlier this morning over on Stove. The second one, Biblis, should be out sometime later this year or early next year. As with all First Thoughts and Initial Impressions videos, I'll give you my 2 cents on the character. Do I think Sigret's good? Where would I play her? What types of gear sets and artifacts would I play her on? All those types of things you've come to expect from me for my First Thoughts and Initial Impressions video. Without any further ado, let's take a look at Sigret's S3 animation.
Oh, shall we burn some rubber? Don't blame me if you get hurt. Rally up, everyone. Where the banner leads, you follow! Careful on the road out there. Maybe I'm not the best person to be saying that.
The animation, as always, is gorgeous, but can we please talk about that music track? I think that is the best track that Epic 7 has ever had, and they need it in-game, and I need it right now. It is definitely the best track, I think, that Epic 7. Just go back, listen to the original trailer, listen to the full track. It's really, really good. Speaking of really good, in the English dub of Epic 7, all versions of Sigret, as well as all versions of Carmaine Rose and Celeste, are voiced by Sally Safioti, and you can tell she's having an absolute blast playing this role once again as Sigret. You may also know her for her work in games such as Final Fantasy XIV, Resident Evil 4, but my personal favorite role of hers, though, is the voice of Mistral from Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Moving on to Swift Flagbearer Sigret's stats, she is a Fire Thief of the Capricorn zodiac symbol, which means she shares a stat line with Elvira, Winter, and Blooming Litica. Taking a closer look at her stats, she has 1,057 attack, 532 defense, 5,542 health, 118 speed, 15% critical hit chance, 150% critical hit damage, 30% starting effectiveness, and no starting effect resistance. This translates to above average speed and effectiveness, but comes at the cost of having really bad attack, defense, and health. Taking a look at her imprint, she has attack percentage for the team, and her self imprint is effectiveness, which is a pretty good fit when we take a look at her kit. Moving on to the aforementioned kit, we come to the skill 2 Target Lock. You gain 1 soul upon use, and it has a 3 to 4 turn cooldown depending on skill level. After dispelling all buffs from a single target, has a 75 to 100% chance based on skill level to inflict target for 2 turns, and makes all allies except for the caster attack with a basic skill. Increases combat readiness of Sigret by 30%. Soulburn effect for the cost of 10 souls, ignores effect resistance. Skill 3 is Flag of Victory. You gain 3 souls upon use and has a 4 to 5 turn cooldown depending on skill level. Dispels 2 buffs from all enemies before a 70 to 100% chance, based on skill level, to inflict fear for 2 turns and decrease combat readiness by 20%. Grants increased speed to all allies for 2 turns. At the start of the first battle, grants increased evasion to Sigret for 2 turns. And finally, Sigret's basic attack skill, Strike of the Flagbearer, attacks the enemy with a flag with a 60 to 75% chance based on skill level to inflict silence for 1 turn. After attacking, if the target is inflicted with silence, decrease combat readiness of the target by 25%. Now that you know the kit, let's talk about the character. Every year, Smilegate releases one of these new art contest winner units, and every time it's a limited that's incredibly strong. Sigret is no exception in this department. That said, I do think she's closer to Midnight Galililius, which is a strong meta role player, than Fairy Tale Tenebria or Afternoon Soak Flan, 2 units that completely ruined the competitive landscape of this game. That said, the current competitive landscape already feels like a war-torn battlefield. There's not really much left to ruin here, I feel like. And I don't want to turn this video into a lecture on power creep, the need for nerfs, or thoughtful floodgates being implemented, but Sigret is pretty indicative of everything wrong with modern E7 design. Let's take a look at the skill 3 Flag of Victory first, and compare it to Silverblade Araminta's skill 3 Meteor Fall. And admittedly, right now, Silverblade Araminta is a very strong unit. Her skill 3 has a 100% chance to stun all enemies with a combat readiness pushback on the entire team. Yes, it has burns too, but its major weakness is that if the opponent builds immunity, they can get around it. For the longest time, this move was the only 100% stun in the entire game, and it's balanced around the fact that you need a buff strip for it to work properly. Now compare this to Flag of Victory, which strips 2 buffs with a 100% chance to fear the enemy and also pushes back the enemy team. Granted, Fear is absolutely worse than Stun in this case, but they decided to make Fear 2 turns, so that way, if you got lucky, it's better than Stun. 1 turn of Fear would have absolutely been sufficient. I mean, it's what, a 60% chance to stun, but you also have to factor in you get a combat readiness pushback and a speed buff for your entire team. But for some reason, we decided that it needed to be 2 turns. Because, question mark. Look, Mort for the better part of this year has been the most hated character for people to play against in Guild Wars. And now, it's Lady of the Scales. I don't know if Smilegate's picking up what we're putting down here, but I really don't think that we needed another Fear unit. Moving back to Araminta and her skill 3, you could say that the burns and the guaranteed stun make her skill stand apart, but Sigret does have that 2-turn speed buff I mentioned, so that way you could really capitalize on your advantage state that you gained from the move. The current state of this game favors one of 2 strategies: tanking down with a bunch of revivers, or just going all out tempo and aggression, which is exactly what this character is designed to do. And admittedly, again, Araminta. But the thing about Araminta is that she can be shut down by a fast opener like Zio if you silence her. It just completely stops her entire game plan in her tracks. Sigret though? Built-in evasion just so she could kind of make it a coin toss and get her turn and then get paid. Very cool. You guys are not fooling me on the design team with this one. Side by side, I hope it's apparent that Sigret is just a modern day version of a control character, just like with Witch of the Mare Tenebria. Now, she's not totally OP because she does have some very clear drawbacks here, like number 1, no block, number 2, no soul burning nor effect resistance, number 3, your opponent can buff stack to dodge the debuff since it only is a 2 buff strip from all of the enemies, and number 4, your opponent could just get lucky and, pop out of the Fear. Or they could just get unlucky and it's a 2-turn stun. Very cool, Smilegate. Anyways, let's move on to the skill 2 target lock. It's a full strip with the newly enhanced target debuff, which allows our team to murder evasion units. Hell, depending on who is on the squad, the move is just a super afternoon soak dual attack fiesta for 1 turn and could probably even kill tanks outright. Soulburn Ignore ER means you could use it to murder Maid Chloe even, if you want. And I don't think anyone is going to complain about that, myself included. Next up, we come to Strike of the Flagbearer, which is her basic attack. It's something we've seen a million times before, depending on how long you've been playing the game. It's just Angel of Light Angelica's basic attack. Again, we've seen it before on characters like Naqual or Biblis. It's a tried and true strong basic attack for a control unit. I just kind of wish that we were a little bit more creative with our basic attacks in 2025. I kind of miss the days of basic attacks doing something unique and cool instead of just stunning or silencing or defense breaking or giving a combat readiness push to my team. Anyways, if it's not obvious by now, Sigret is a cleave/control character. You play her when you're the aggressor in the matchup in the same spot you would with Witch of the Mare Tenebria. She has more counters than Witch for sure, but I think she could close out a game far faster and is potentially far more deadly, especially because of her skill 2. Just build her blazing fast and use her skill 3 to speed up your team and push their team back and pray that the Fear gives you the tempo that you need in order to actually win the game. Or you just use her skill 2 to dogpile on 1 unit, instantly kill them, and then ride the 30% combat readiness buff it gives into some kind of skill 3 and control the pace of the game from there. It's not really more complicated than that. As for how you build her, Speed Set is obviously the name of the game. She is going to be a fast control character, either functioning as a cleave opener or some kind of cleave/control bridge. Your 2-piece offset is going to be either immunity set because you're afraid of potentially getting defense broken turn 1 by a faster unit, or hit set to get your effectiveness sky high, say over 200%, so that way no one can resist your debuffs. To wrap up, let's talk about her artifact, which is Glorious Flag, featuring the artwork that won the art contest. It increases your evasion by 20%, and after an ally uses a basic attack skill, has a 50 to 100% chance based on artifact level to increase the combat range of the caster by 10%. This artifact skill effect can only apply to one hero within a team. So obviously, it is meant to synergize with the evasion from her skill 3 as well as the skill 2 itself. So if you play this artifact along with the skill 3, you'll have 70% evasion, making her very difficult to deal with on turn 1. And then when you use the skill 2, you get the 30% from the actual move itself. And then the 3 dual attacks gives you another 30%, which is kind of functionally similar to the 50% combat radius that some opening skills have. So that way you can kind of loop back around and control the pace of the match. I think it's a fine artifact, and it's definitely worth playing on Sigret. That said, I do want to draw your attention to Goblet of Oath, which says that whenever you use a non-attack skill, it lowers your skill cooldowns by 1 turn, but can only proc 3 times in a battle. That's really strong on Sigret, because you have the ability to essentially lower the cooldown of your S2 and S3 and get a lot of value out of them. At that point, you're basically going to just run your opponent over. The fact that it has some incidental effectiveness on it is also just a really big deal. It will make hitting those stat thresholds quite a bit easier. Which one is better? I don't know, but I do think that these are probably the two that you would consider playing on this character, at least at first when we're in the initial testing period of the character. Overall, Swift Flagbearer Sigret continues a tradition of art contest winners being insanely powerful aggro units that will make turn 2 players cry. Hopefully, Biblis bucks this trend and us turtles have something to look forward to. On paper, the character doesn't seem like she's a game-warping unit in the same way that Lady of the Scales is, but she certainly appears very strong. And she's also a limited unit. Not picking her up means that if she's meta-relevant in any capacity, you'll be left without her for well over a year, so please do not skip her. And those are my thoughts on Sigret. But now I want to hear from you. How do you feel about Sigret? Or do you just kind of disagree with my assessment at all? Would love to hear any and all comments down below. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later now.